The NaviPro IT Break, 15 entertaining minutes with our experts on hot topics. They're designed to help you keep up to date on the latest IT trends. Good morning. Welcome to this IT Break, episode 37. My name is Pierre Tocci. I'm a senior consultant with NaviPro for IT transformation strategies. And this morning, my guest is Vivienne Suen of IBM. Vivienne is a cybersecurity architect. Good morning, Vivienne.
Good morning, Pierre.
Nice to have you with me today. Last time we spoke, it was during a cybersecurity event back in November. That was a great event.
It was a great event. And, I went and I looked at our conversation from November when I was preparing for this talk. I'm a little embarrassed now because at the time we talked a lot about cafes and these are still denied to us, which I really did not think would be the case.
Well, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. Let's take it as a good thing because we still cannot go.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah. So back in November, I recall your conference was on X-Force. Now this morning, our topic is the IBM X-Force Threat Intelligence Index. So tell our audience, Vivienne, what is the Threat Intelligence Index?
Yeah, absolutely. IBM X-Force is our security research and monitoring arm of IBM Security. At X-Force, we monitor over 100 billion cybersecurity events every day. And a lot of what we observe gets rolled up into our own X-Force threat intelligence feed. Once a year, we publish our findings in the X-Force Threat Intelligence Index. And that's the report that I wanted to speak to you and to all of our friends out there about today.
Now, when you do, is this done via surveys? How do you populate this data, these statistics?
This data all comes from our security research and our own security monitoring that we do. We've got thousands of security professionals around the world who monitor the internet, who do dark web research, who engage in penetration testing efforts, and we take all of those findings. One of the things that we observed last year was we actually stumbled upon a training activity from an Iranian threat actor group.
A training activity.
We did. We found a site which a group of cyber criminals was using for their own training, and we were able to get access to that and observe them. And we got something like 100 hours of observation on how they trained their people.
So you hacked the boot camp.
Well, it's nice to hear about things going the good guy's way for a change. So that gave us a tremendous amount of insight into current tactics and procedures being used by threat actors.
That is very interesting. So, and I would assume that with the R&D force that you have and the visibility tools and all these thousands of researchers that you have, there is a slim chance that you missed out on any threats or feedbacks or stuff going on.
Well, I would caution against complacency. It's a never-ending arms race in cybersecurity. So every time we do, feel like we found something good or got a win for the good guys, we're always on the lookout for the next threat and the next shift. Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that cyber criminals are really good at is adapting and evolving. They move very nimbly to where the opportunity is, and we certainly saw that last year.
Well, your finding with this Iranian boot camp, should I say, gives me a good sense that they practice ahead to see if it's going to work.
Oh, absolutely. Cybercrime is a business. It's not a bunch of lonely antisocial people in hoodies hiding in basements. Like they have offices, they pay salaries, they take training, they wear suits and they commute on the subway and probably carry briefcases and they work 9 to 5 days. And, it is an industry and it is growing.
Oh, that is, I won't say awesome, but it's, awesome in one way, should I say.
Yeah, no, it's a very real industry. It's not without much effort. Anybody can go on the dark web and buy ransomware as a service or buy malware as a service. If I have a grudge against somebody for a few $100s, I could hire identity theft as a service and get somebody to really mess up their life. It's not a difficult thing to do, and they make money off it, which is why they do it.
Well, one day we need to have a IT break based on that. I think we'll have a lot of people listening to us or listening to you, not to me. So, Vivienne, question: what are the key findings from this year's index?
Yeah, so we saw some huge shifts last year, not surprisingly. One of the most obvious things was that 2020 was a year of ransomware. There was a major ransomware attack last year, the Sodinikibi attack, which hit many, many people in many countries, in many industries. Conservatively, we're estimating around $123 million globally that was lost to
Hmm.
this ransomware attack. And it really didn't matter who you were or what industry you were in. It hit many people around the world. We don't usually see ransomware attacks that are that universally expensive. And one of the reasons for that was that an abnormally high number of people paid the ransom on this
Yeah.
attack. And this was because of what we call a dual extortion technique or tactic. So usually what happens when you get ransomware is that you get the ransomware in your system, they encrypt all of your data, and then they tell you pay the ransom, and then we'll give you the keys to get your data
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Well, people have learned, right? That's what WannaCry did, and most people have learned. So we take backups now. We take regular backups and we store our backups and we test our backups so we have a good version of our data to go back to. So
Hmm.
now what cyber criminals are doing with this dual extortion technique is they don't only encrypt your data, but if you refuse to pay the ransom, then they threaten to leak your data. And
Yeah.
then
Okay.
you're the victim of a data breach, right? Either they expose your intellectual property or they expose the private, confidential information that the
Yeah.
regulators, like people's health information or financial information, that you're required to protect. And then you have no
Uh-huh.
choice, right? Then they're going to leak the data, and so people then roll over and pay the ransom. I think in the manufacturing and industrial sector, we saw something like 43% of people in those industries who got hit by this ransomware attack paid the ransom. That's almost half of the customers in that industry who are willing to pay the ransom because they can't afford that data getting out there.
So if my backup may be obsolete, right? They're great backups. You got integrity. You got to respect all your 3, 2, 1 rules. But yet they're gonna leak this stuff on the web, and I don't know who's gonna get a hand on this. How do I protect myself? What do I
Well,
do?
the only thing you can really do at that point is try to detect and prevent the ransomware in the first place. So, what we've seen, particularly in the last 6 months or so, is everyone's trying to step up their game around ransomware detection and response.
Uh huh.
We can't let this stuff in the door anymore. So everyone's taking a good hard look at understanding, where are my exposures? How do I prevent ransomware from getting onto my network? And then, if it does get in, how do I detect and shut it down as fast as possible?
Yeah. I'm well aware, well, through education and talking with folks like yourself, that there are a lot of tools out there available to see stuff coming up, analyze traffic east west, see behavior on your
Mhm.
network, and so forth. One of the seminars I had with one of my colleagues, we discussed zero trust. How do we apply this?
Oh, yeah. Zero trust is at the forefront in the cybersecurity industry right now. The most important thing to remember about zero trust is that it's not a specific technology or a specific tool, it's an approach, right? It
Yeah.
is a philosophy to security. And so that means that my zero trust is not going to look the same as your zero trust, is not going to look the same as, my neighbor down the street's zero trust. It's all about understanding your own risk landscape and your risk posture, and understanding where to apply these principles. It can be enormously expensive you're really talking about revamping your entire security program around this zero trust philosophy. For decades now in
Yeah.
cybersecurity, we've operated under things like the right of least privilege, or a trust but verify approach. And zero trust is really even more restrictive than that. So you're talking about rebuilding everything from this zero trust viewpoint, which means that you have to understand your enterprise and you have to understand your particular risks. And some of
Hmm.
those are things that you can control internally, and some of them are external drivers that you have no control over. So you have to understand what the risk is so that you can defend against it.
So let's say in any company they adopt a zero trust behavior. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
at a end user level, we could call that a cybersecurity hygiene. At the corporate level, we would call it a zero trust approach. Um, Year over year, if I take the findings of the threat intelligence index that you produce, how can I match the two? Can I match the two? Can I transform my zero trust?
Um, it's difficult. It's really difficult again because everybody's zero trust strategy is going to
Hmm.
be different. It's really important to understand your industry
Yeah.
and how your industry and your geography are vulnerable. There's some things that we can take for granted, right? One of the key tenets of zero trust is how do you let the good guys in and keep the bad guys out? So it's all about adaptive access and multi-factor authentication. At this point in time in 2021, multi-factor authentication should be table stakes for
Hmm.
everybody. It's not enough to just take username and password and ask for strong passwords. I think the last time you and I spoke, I talked about the importance of password managers.
Yeah.
And I'd say at this point, that's kind of a given. You should be looking at
Yeah.
multi-factor authentication. You should have it everywhere, not just your employees, but your
Hmm.
contractors, your suppliers, your partners. That's a key principle of zero trust is MFA everywhere. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're in retail or manufacturing or energy, you still need that. Specifically, when you talk about different industry risks, what we saw last year in manufacturing and industrial and in energy and utilities, there was a huge uptick in attacks against enterprises in those industries. And
Hmm.
most of the time, they're not even going after the industrial control systems or the operating technology environment. They're going after the IT infrastructure. Because even if you have a completely air gapped operational technology environment, you might still have a web server running somewhere in that. You still have IT operations surrounding all of that, particularly now with the increased remote access. So your IT attack surface is there, it's a given,
Yeah.
and they know, the adversaries know that that's the way in.
Well, see, this is the kind of answers I'm looking for from you. If I read the last year's index, I would have key findings, and then go back and look at my posture and say, "Am I okay or not?" Make adjustments. Now, if I'm in manufacturing now, okay,
Hmm.
I believe that they'll go after my PLCs, and the indexes say, you know what, trend is not really there. You should be focusing on your IT landscape. Well, it gives me a different approach to my security posture too. Therefore, my zero trust as well. Right? These
Yeah.
are the kind of key findings I believe the report will spit out for me.
Oh, absolutely. We have a lot of material in this year's report around profiling different industries and
Okay.
the risk landscape in each of them because it's wildly different. Every single year, financial services is the top attacked industry. That's not surprising, right? Because that's literally where the money is.
Yeah.
Um, but last year, we saw
And
manufacturing become the
and
number
their
two.
weakness and their weakness, Vivienne, is that they had a reputation to protect. They
Yes.
will pay out.
Yes,
Reputation.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's such a highly regulated industry,
Yeah.
and the risk of data leakage is so high. They will pay, right? So yeah, financial services remains the number one. It probably always will be. But yeah, last year in 2020, manufacturing and industrial was the number 2 most attacked industry. The year before that, it had been number 8. So
Wow.
that was a really dramatic shift. Um, and my own analysis of this, I think that part of the reason for that is because of the changes last year. The sudden focus on critical infrastructure. Around things like telecommunications, energy, and utilities. It's not surprising at all. We have seen Internet of Things and industrial control systems attacks on the rise for the last couple of years. So I think that 2020 was really a window of opportunity for cyber criminals. I think I
Yeah.
spoke in our last IT break about the fact that your control points are now on people's kitchen tables because everyone's working
Yeah.
from home. Yeah. So that
Oh, yeah.
makes these organizations very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, when I also look at the trends, some of the top attacked industries in the year prior in 2019 had been transportation and retail. So, last year, transportation was not a profitable industry. So that's not where the opportunity is. Retail didn't really pick up again until the latter part of the year as businesses adapted to online shopping and we started to recover again. But, they go where the money is. And that was where the money was last year.
That is an interesting way of discovering trends and things to come. As a conclusion, Vivienne, how do people get access to the index? How does it work? Who do we call?
Oh, yeah. You visit ibm.com/security. And there will be links to the X-Force Threat Intelligence Index. You can download the report. The report itself is about a 48-page PDF. We have an executive summary that's about 8 or 9 pages as well, and contains a summary of all of our key findings. Or as always, with our friends at NoviPro, we're very happy to have a conversation and like this and talk about findings specific to your industry or your enterprise.
Well, that was a very good conversation, Vivienne, this morning. I learned a lot about training boot camps. I love this. So thank you again, Vivienne. That was really fun. Look forward to the next one. I have a few ideas on the next one, what to look out for. That was very good. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Please remember that this webinar is recorded and at our hub of content at hub.novipro.com, along with the 36 previous webinars or IT breaks, reruns of Vivienne's intervention at our security event of last year. So a lot of content. Again, thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully you will be our guest very soon. Thank you again, Vivienne.
Okay, thank you.
You want access to a range of cutting-edge information? Go to our online content area at hub.novipro.com.